We are back for episode number 3 of the Kegger Media Podcast. And if you're not, go follow us on TikTok. Kegger Media Podcast on TikTok. Let me tell you, you won't be disappointed. It's the best. But hey, getting us started for this episode, we are just coming off the Super Bowl. Absolute destruction. That's where I just want to start. We were all talking last week. Patrick Mahomes, three-peat. He's going to be the GOAT. Tom Brady, where you at? You haven't done this. Well, guess what? Tom Brady called that game, and Tom Brady, deep down, he's never going to say it. He was grinning at the end of that, okay? He was happy knowing he's still the GOAT. But I have to say, are the Philadelphia Eagles, is this one of the best teams we've ever seen in the history of the NFL? Because take their losses. Jalen Hurts was pretty much not playing in 2 of them. Their only real loss was to the Falcons. They only lost 1 game all year long. Is this one of the greatest teams we've ever seen?
I think you got to consider it. Yeah. It's like, I don't know how they just flew under everyone's radar. It's like, this team is so good. Jalen Hurts is an above average quarterback. I wouldn't say he's Mahomes or Allen level, but he's a good quarterback. You have the best running backs in the league.
Right now, he's the best.
Great
If you win Super Bowl MVP, you're the best. You're the best.
Honestly, I mean, he played the best in the playoffs, and you got the best running back. You have 2 great receivers. You got a good tight end, great offensive line, and an incredible defense. Like, that defensive line was rushing 4 against Mahomes, and he had 0 time to throw. So it's like everyone thought it was going to be an easy 3-peat for the Chiefs, but like on paper, that Eagles team is so good. And I would not be surprised if it's a little dynasty. I don't think they're going to like 3-peat or anything, but I could see them being in the mix for the next 5 years.
Dude, it's unbelievable. Like you just said, all aspects of football, their offensive line, unbelievable. I don't know if you saw that stat during the Super Bowl of how massive their offensive line is compared to, I mean, it's bigger than everyone else in the NFL. But the craziest part is when they showed, I think the average weight was like 348 pounds or something. And then they said, go back to Super Bowl 1. The average weight was 240 pounds or something during Super Bowl 1. Okay, so they dominate there. Their wide receivers are unbelievable in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Okay, both of them are great. You have Saquon Barkley, who just showed this season alone was one of the top 10-5 running back seasons of all time, and we haven't even started about the defense. That defensive line, like you said, 4 rushed to get to Mahomes. Cooper DeJean, they know how to draft players. They know how to develop players. Howie Roseman there is an unbelievable general manager, because did you see when they showed what the Carson Wentz trade turned into? It turned into like Devontae Smith, Cooper DeJean. It was like A.J. Brown. It was crazy at what
their
that
whole
trade,
team basically.
Yeah.
Out of Carson Wentz. Yeah.
Out of Carson Wentz. And, you know, this is where I look at them being maybe one of the best ever, is because if this was Tom Brady, like, you know, that Atlanta Falcons year where, or not Atlanta, or yeah, when he came back and beat the Falcons, right? You always thought Tom had a chance. You know, it's the Patriots. I didn't have this. The second when he got picked off from Cooper DeJean, took back pick 6, and then picked off right after that, I'm like, this is over. He couldn't do anything.
He had nothing. Like, that's the craziest part about the whole thing, is the Eagles' offense didn't even really play that great in the game. Jalen Hurts had 221 yards. Saquon was averaging 2.3 yards per carry. So it's not like they even played that great. The defense stepped up. And if you could give the whole defense as a whole the MVP, I think they deserve it more than Jalen Hurts. But just an all-out dominant win by the Eagles. Shout out to Jake Elliott, too. That dude was money in the Super Bowl. 8 for 8 on field goals and extra points, and he was putting them right down the middle. Like, that's a lot of pressure, and he was just there for it. The whole team was. They were just ready for it. And I see them actually contending for a long time. Jalen Hurts is only 26 years old. Saquon's still got some good years in him. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are both still young. Cooper DeJean's young. So it's like, this team's going to be scary for a while.
No, it was the most dominating performance. I mean, I know your Seahawks destroyed the Broncos back, years ago. But watching this against what we're almost considering one of the greatest of all time in Patrick Mahomes, and then the whole Brady conversation, a three-peat. I was honestly hoping that for MVP, I know there was the interceptions and stuff, but those interceptions were led because of that defensive line. I
Yeah.
wish that they gave the defensive line the MVP because they gave Jalen Hurts the perfect field position on nearly every drive. He didn't have to do too much, okay? He did not have to do too much to get the job done.
No, I mean, it was easy for him. Yeah. They had, what, 340 total offensive yards? It's like they had a defensive touchdown and another drive start at the 10-yard line. Like that defense handed them that Super Bowl on a silver platter. Um, but the craziest thing for me was not even the pressure. It's like how quickly the Chiefs went away from the run game. Their running backs only combined for 7 carries the whole game. And it's like, I get they were losing a large majority of that. But coming into that game, don't you have to commit to the run until at least you're down by 3, maybe 4 scores? It's like, how did they abandon it that quickly?
No, exactly, because at that point, showing the pressure that you were getting, you didn't have to blitz anymore because you're like, we're going to drop back and pass because we know that they're going to pass. They're not running at all. And our linemen are getting all the push up front. It's like they needed to get something to get some sort of play action going. They had none of that. The only time they ever got anything was garbage time when all the backups were in. So it's like you can't even look at what Mahomes' numbers were ending because it was just a fluke of garbage time at the end.
Yeah.
Once you look at that first half and what he had 38 yards, 36 yards or something, 2 interceptions, it had to have been the worst half of a quarterback ever in the Super Bowl. I mean, I
Oh, yeah.
can't think of any worse than what Patrick Mahomes had.
Yeah, especially coming from a quarterback that was supposedly the best or the second best quarterback of all time to come out and do 38 yards and a half of the Super Bowl. It's like you just would never expect that. And he literally saved his legacy with some of those garbage time stats. Like on paper, it doesn't look like he had that bad of a game. But for 80% of that game, he was absolutely horrible. And I'm not saying it was all his fault. He had zero time to throw, but he missed a lot of easy throws too. And his receivers didn't help him much.
No,
But
exactly.
I,
And
but
where do you think this goes for his legacy? Because I saw he's played in 5 Super Bowls now, okay? And he's won 3 of them, lost 2. Well, this puts his point differential in Super Bowls at negative 23. That means those 2 losses, he got destroyed in those. Okay, is his legacy different? What's going to happen with the Patrick Mahomes talk moving forward?
yeah, I'm kind of divided here because on one hand, he's trending in the wrong way. Like this was one of his worst seasons of his career recently. They lost bad, but also if you compare it to Tom Brady's numbers, Brady didn't make his 5th Super Bowl until he was 34 years old. Mahomes is 29. So Mahomes has plenty of time to work on his legacy to get to GOAT status. I just don't know if he can do it. I think his
Yeah.
best years might be behind him. I think he's still going to be a good quarterback, and maybe they'll win a few more. I don't see him winning 5 more. Like I
No, and
don't
like you
think
said,
there's
it's
any
the age
chance,
thing.
especially
This
with
is
Kelsey
yeah, and this is where I'm going to
possibly
come back
retiring.
with you on the age thing. Is I don't. I think even if he wins one before 34 and goes ahead of Tom Brady, these losses were like nothing Tom Brady's ever had in the Super Bowl. He never got destroyed. Every game was super close that he played. Okay, there was some that he should have almost won. Okay, Tom Brady never had. He never. There was not one Super Bowl that we looked at Tom Brady and we said, "This guy forgot how to play football." We've had that 2 Super Bowls now from Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean it's concerning. Like, yeah, 2 out of 5 already are this bad. And another thing, I took a look at what people would say are the top 5 quarterbacks under 30 years old: Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson. The 4 that aren't Mahomes all improved in their touchdowns per game, less interceptions per game, and total yards per game this season compared to their career average. Mahomes was worse in every category. So it's like he's trending downward at the same time the other top 4 quarterbacks in the league are trending upward. And it's like those teams are already so close in terms of winning games against him. Burrow's already won a game in the playoffs against him. Hurts has now won a game against him in the playoffs. Allen's games are always close against him. If Lamar could get there, I think the games would be close. So it's like if Mahomes continues to trend downward while these guys all trend upward, I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs have some early exits in the next few years.
No, and see, I agree with that of going the under 30 because in what you're saying on that, because take out Burrow, who has a great receiving core, and take out Jalen Hurts, who I think has great receivers. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, who have been improving. So you can't make the argument for Mahomes saying he didn't have a lot of help, maybe. He didn't have this, didn't have that. Xavier Worthy's a rookie. Okay, you can't count him. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson did not have a lot of receiving help, okay? And they're improving. So it kind of shows you Mahomes, I'm not saying he's not great. He is great. He's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time. But it's concerning showing that when he doesn't have the help, that I don't know. Look at Cincinnati, okay? They had a horrible defense, and yet they were still in a lot of the games,
Yeah.
okay? If Patrick Mahomes this year didn't have a good defense, throughout the season, I know they finished great record-wise, they didn't put up a lot of points. Their defense led
No.
them. So I feel if Burrow was on that team, they would have actually won the Super Bowl this year. I don't
No.
know. That's crazy talk, but
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It's like even with a great defense, the Chiefs still had so many one-score wins in the regular season. Like I remember games against the Raiders and like other horrible teams. The Chiefs were barely squeaking through. And we thought, "Oh, it's just part of their greatness." But it's like maybe they weren't that great. Maybe they were just getting lucky. Maybe they are really close to the same skill level as some of these worst teams. And they're just like barely squeaking through.
yeah.
Um,
And who would have
yeah,
thought that it would have
and
been their offense that actually ends up hurting them in the long run? Because think the defense. I know the Eagles put up a bunch of points. It's not all the defense though, because Patrick Mahomes and the turnovers and where they were putting them on the field was just leading to the defense. You can't do too
oh yeah,
much. So it's like the defense got them to where they were. The regular season they were hardly putting up over 30 points in any single game. The Bengals were putting up over 30. They just had an awful defense, okay? Patrick Mahomes has gotten very lucky with a great defense playing in Kansas City.
yeah, 100%. And I don't think it's really fair to blame the receivers or the running backs on the Chiefs either. It's like he does have some weapons. He's got the second best tight end in NFL history. He's got two average running backs in Pacheco and Hunt. And then he has a bunch of receivers that are either not at their prime yet or are already out of their prime. And Hopkins, Juju, Rasheed Rice, Worthy. But they're all pretty good receivers still. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
some teams that don't have one receiver at that level. He's got four decent receivers, a good tight end, good running backs. So I don't know that it's fair to blame his receiving core. When you look at Josh Allen's, outside of Amari Cooper, he's got no one to throw to. He's got Amari Cooper and James Cook. That's about it.
Yeah.
So it's like Josh Allen's able to do a lot more with a lot less.
No, I agree. And I think this really will hurt Patrick Mahomes' legacy in the long run. And it's going to be interesting to see how they rebuild their. Andy Reid's getting older. Okay. How much longer will he want to go if he has to see, like, hey, we're missing some pieces? All I want now is Super Bowls. Andy Reid's not going to be there if they're not getting Super Bowls. Travis Kelsey, I mean, think every single year you're getting hit, you're getting beat down. And then you look at the Super Bowl you just played in, got destroyed. Do you think in a year from now you can really make it to another one? Travis Kelsey is also living this glamorous life now, okay? He's got a girl that he seems like he really loves. Is he going to keep this going or is he going to call it? So you have all these moving pieces that are happening in Kansas City that none of us were expecting just a week ago. So it will be interesting to see what their moves are this coming off season.
Yeah, it was weird to see the week leading up to the Super Bowl. Travis Kelsey's getting interviewed at the media day, and he's saying, "I could see myself playing another 2, 3 years." And then after the Super Bowl, they asked him, and he said, "I need to take some time and think about retirement." It's like it's crazy how one game can just shift his whole attitude.
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot of his brother the year that they lost the Super Bowl. I think it just takes a lot out of you when you lose a Super Bowl, thinking how hard it was to get to that point and you're going to have to do all of that again just to get a chance to win a Super Bowl. I think mentally it's just exhausting, and I wouldn't blame Kelsey if he did decide to retire. But I just thought it was funny how one game can shift his attitude so quickly.
No, I agree with that 100%. The NFL came out with the Super Bowl schedule, not this next year, but a year from now, February 14th, 2027. The Super Bowl is going to be there. Week later than it normally is. President's Day weekend. Do you think that's when the NFL adds an extra bye week, or do you think they add an extra game? What do you think it is? Because there's no way that they just push it a week later to not give us anything.
Yeah, I think they need to do both. Maybe start the season a week earlier, add a second bye week, and add an 18th game to the schedule. I think it just makes sense. There's a lot more money with the more games that get played, but an 18-game schedule is crazy. Like, these guys need some rest. And I think an idea that works well is copying the NBA and MLB model where you have the All-Star game during the season. So maybe you do a bye week somewhere in weeks 1 through 9, and then you do a All-Star game week 14 or something where everyone's off. We just play mini games and stuff. Give everyone a rest for those last 4 or 5 weeks of the NFL season. I think that just makes sense, giving guys 2 full weeks off throughout the season. Then they could play a full 18 games and be healthy leading into the playoffs. And then people actually care about the Pro Bowl, and the players that do make the Super Bowl can actually play in it or attend it. I think it just makes sense on all fronts. But yeah,
I actually like that a lot. I love that what you're saying. Is the extra bye week, having that to where it's the Pro Bowl, and just don't make it to where you're hitting a game. Keep the games that they're doing, okay? The fun mini games, things like that. But I saw that this year, it was the lowest viewership ever, okay, for the Pro Bowl. And why are they having some things on Thursday and Friday for mini games during the middle of the day? Don't be doing that. Have it just on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And then at that point, you're getting the stars that could end up making it to the Super Bowl. That's the biggest thing with the Pro Bowl, is doing that. My only question is, how do you think they choose those players for the Pro Bowl at that point if you're only playing maybe 8 games?
Yeah, I think you'd have to do the Pro Bowl later in the season. So I think you'd have to do it like week 14, 15, and then you just base it off stats.
Yeah.
But I think that fixes a major problem too, where guys are dropping out of the Pro Bowl because they just don't want to play in it, or they're still in the playoffs so they can't play in it. Like, look at this year. We had Drake May in the where it was in the Pro Bowl. It's like, you're telling me he's a top 3 quarterback in the AFC?
No.
I remember Tyler Huntley was a Pro Bowler a few years ago for the Ravens. It's like, sometimes it feels like these guys are just making it because there was nobody else wanting to play. Yep. It's like, that shouldn't be how it is. You look at the NBA, unless they're injured, they're not necessarily playing super hard, but they're out there competing. They want to be there. And it's like the NFL could just never figure out how to do an all-star game that people actually care about. But I think getting the biggest names, the best teams there, that's a good first start.
No, I agree with that 100%. The players need a little bit more rest. I think it would actually rejuvenate some of them, having 2 different bye weeks. Someone that could actually like that a little bit more is old man Aaron Rodgers. We just heard Aaron Rodgers is Jets say they're done with him. I actually saw something come out saying that they did talk to him and said maybe they could bring him back if he didn't go on the Pat McAfee show or did a lot of media type of stuff, okay? He's never not going to do that. That's who he is.
Happen.
He's going on those shows. So now that they're done with him, what's next for Rodgers? Because, to be honest, there is not a lot of teams out there who need a quarterback, especially at his age.
Yeah, there's really not. Unless a team that's already kind of in the middle of the pack is going to go away from their mid-tier quarterback, like, say, the Cowboys or, I don't know, the Cardinals, like teams that have a decent quarterback, that have a decent roster. I could see maybe one of them looking to go a different way, but I just don't think Rodgers is in prime enough shape to actually make a difference for one of these teams. So what I think will happen is he'll either retire or he'll go to a really bad team. Maybe the Giants might be a decent fit now that they have Malik Neighbors and some decent running backs, but I just don't see it working out. Any team that he goes to, maybe wins a couple more games this year, but it's not going to make a difference. I don't see him going to a team that can actually make the playoffs, let alone compete for a Super Bowl. So I think best for him would probably be to call it a career now. Um, but I would not be surprised if a team that won less than 5 games last year gives him a call.
Yeah, no, because I could see him even heading to Tennessee if they don't choose a quarterback. Somewhere like that, even the Raiders, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of Shador Sanders. He may want to go there, this and that, but a place like that. However, like what you're saying, Rodgers is only playing for Super Bowls at this point. Well, all the teams that are Super Bowl quality are not missing just a quarterback. Hey, like there's not one team out there that you're like, hey, you throw a quarterback in there, you guys are a championship. It's not like the Buccaneers when Tom Brady went there, where it's like this is
yeah,
an unbelievable roster. They just need a quarterback to get there. There's not really a team out there right now. You can sit there and say Cleveland needs a quarterback. He's not going to Cleveland. Okay, Tom Brady is not doing that.
no,
New York, I don't think he's going to go to the Giants. I don't think
yeah,
he's going to end up playing there. So I think Rodgers needs to just call it quits and just say, hey, had a heck of a career.
yeah. I think you're right. I think his ego is just a little too big to go play in a small market or play on a team that only won 3 games last year. I threw up on TikTok, kind of as a joke, but kind of serious. What do you think about him going to San Francisco? Do you think that's an upgrade on Brock Purdy? Purdy had somewhat of a down year this year, but with all those weapons, Rodgers actually had a pretty decent year for the Jets this year. Do you think that would be an upgrade there?
Yeah, and so they actually said that Rodgers, he's a little injured early in the season. He actually ended the season pretty dang well. He's from San Fran area. There was a lot of talk of they should have drafted him over Alex Smith right out of college. He's from Chico. He's a hometown boy. They have an unbelievable roster, both offensively and defensively. I'll be honest, that could make a little bit of fun seeing him there. You still got Brock Purdy on a rookie contract, so it's not like you got to pay him a lot of money and have all this on there. But then, are you putting all your eggs in one basket for this circus show to come in that may be horrible? And then you're like, hey, Brock Purdy ain't going to play with us again. He's mad. That do you do all that to maybe get that Super Bowl, or it could end up falling apart like the Jets did? I don't know.
Yeah,
That would be interesting because if he ended the way he ended at New York, he would help the 49ers, I think.
yeah, no, I agree. But yeah, it puts them in a weird situation where Brock Purdy would not want to come back if you replaced him with Aaron Rodgers for one season. But I feel like the San Francisco 49ers are already in a kind of a weird spot with Brock Purdy. I heard they're saying he's expecting about $55 million a year for his next contract. Do you think he's worth that? He hasn't really shown that he is that elite tier quarterback. He's kind of average to slightly above average. He can do the jobs. He can win games here and there with a great roster. But you take away CMC, you take away Trent Williams, you take away Debo. He starts losing games that he should be winning. Do you think he's worth $55 million a year?
No, I think the year when everyone was freaking out thinking how great he was, I was thinking uh, it could be a fluke year. Okay, they had an unbelievable roster. He was playing great, makes it to the Super Bowl last year. They end up losing, and then you saw this year with some different injuries on the offense, he wasn't getting it done. I think they need to see a little bit more out of Brock Purdy before you dump money like that into him. Because I think we're starting to see kind of a transition where you don't need that elite quarterback to win a Super Bowl. If you put money into that offensive line, find the defense, get that decent running back, have some weapons outside, you need a quarterback who can just get it done in a sense. That do you really want to spend that much cap on Brock Purdy? I don't think
No,
so.
exactly. I mean, look at the Eagles. Like, Jalen Hurts had a really good year this year, but statistically, he was probably outside the top 10. He did not throw too many passing touchdowns. I know he had a lot of tush push touchdowns that count for him, but those are basically rushing touchdowns for the running back on a normal team. So it's like you don't need a great quarterback. You just kind of need someone that'll manage the game and give the ball to his playmakers.
Yep.
Um, and I don't know if you really pay Brock Purdy $55 million a year when he's proven that in big games he disappears a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, it's I agree with that 100%. And speaking of money, speaking of someone losing money, um big contract extension, the good old Luka Doncic. He ain't getting the money. We all heard about that in the trade, but I kind of want to talk about Luka for a second and just say what a debut. He didn't play the best. I understand that, but there's something clicking in LA right now. There is smiles. I've never seen Luka smile this much. I haven't seen LeBron playing with this type of energy. Austin Reeves is playing unbelievable. Mark Williams trade falling through. It doesn't matter. That team is great. Where do you think they go to this year?
Yeah, I think they have a legitimate shot to contend this year. After seeing that first game with Luka and LeBron on the court, it just makes so much sense. Like LeBron had 7 turnovers. Luka shot 5 for 14. They still won by 19 points. Like I get they were playing the Jazz, but it just works. Um, Rui, Reeves, connect. They're going to be wide open all the time, and you're going to have one of LeBron or Luka on the court at basically the whole game. It's like no other team has that. There's no team that has two top 10 players in the league that can just play so well together. They're so selfless. Like they both are probably near the top in rebounds and assists. So having two efficient players that just do so much on the same team and they're truly like bought into the system, I think they have a real good shot. I think the Thunder will put up some problems against them, and then whoever comes out of the East. But I see them getting at least to the Western Conference Finals.
I actually agree with that too. I did make a TikTok talking about. I actually did think it fooled me a bit. I thought the Jazz were going to be able to compete with them in Luka's debut, and I was literally just going off. The Jazz were starting to play decent. Isaiah Collier was playing really good as a rookie point guard. My biggest thing why I was thinking they could contend and kind of spoil Luka's debut is having Walker Kessler down low. I was thinking with no center, I'm like, okay, he's gonna sit there and dominate. He's gonna give him hell down there. Boy, was I wrong. Okay, the size did not matter for the Utah Jazz. Um, the way the Lakers' offense flowed, with a guy like Luka who usually demands the ball a lot, I think we're gonna see a whole different LeBron James coming soon. I think him and Luka are going to figure out a way. They're both ball dominant people. But guess what? So was Dwayne Wade and LeBron. Go back to
Yeah,
before LeBron went to Miami. Dwayne Wade was the guy in Miami. The usage rate for him was unbelievable. Well, I think LeBron's actually going to take a little step back. And I'm not saying skill wise or anything, but I think he's bought in that Luka's the man. Okay. He's going to be the
yeah,
future. But when LeBron has to take over, he'll take over. But I'm seeing a different type of LeBron. I'm seeing him smile. I'm seeing him play happy. And I think he's going to have a lot of fun playing off the ball a little bit more and let Luka Magic go to work.
yeah. He seems rejuvenated, and I think this Luka move really, truly could have added another year or two to LeBron's career. I think with Davis, it seemed like maybe one more year after this, he was probably going to hang it up, and they probably weren't going to actually compete for a title. Now he's got a new young guy. He doesn't have to be the best player on his team. It's like this is the first time in his 20-year career where it's like, without a doubt, LeBron's not the best player on this team. When it was him
Yeah.
and AD, it's always like 1A, 1B. Now it's like Luka's the number one guy, LeBron's the number two. And
Yeah.
that takes so much pressure off LeBron. And it's just fun playing with such an exciting young player. Or I could see LeBron playing another 2, 3 years after this because they have a legitimate shot to win the title any year that Luka's on the team.
And I think LeBron's been waiting for this for 4 or 5 years now. I think he's waiting to take the back seat in a sense. Okay, I think he knows what he's putting his body through. You see it in press conferences afterward when AD was still there, and they're like, "LeBron, what you doing?" He's like, "I'm just ready to go home and have a glass of wine. I'm
Yeah,
so tired." Well, now, hey, Luka, you take this game over. I don't have to anymore. It always had to rely on a 40-year-old man who's in his 22nd year to take it over, where AD was always out, he was injured, and when he was playing, he wasn't that bring the ball up type of center. Okay, and so I think this has rejuvenated him. Something that is kind of interesting, little conspiracy theory. But LeBron and AD were supposed to be on the same team come All Star Weekend. Do you think AD said, "Hey, I'm injured. I ain't playing All Star Weekend. I don't want to be with LeBron again"? Huh? Do you think that's a little
No,
something, or what's
no,
going on there?
I've watched too much Anthony Davis. His injuries are true. That dude is so soft. I feel like that was probably the biggest red flag in that trade. Not only that Luka has way more years ahead of him than AD, but it's like AD's never healthy. So
Yeah,
it's
because
like
we've
maybe
never
AD has
said
5 years
AD's
and
not
Luka has
bad or
10.
not good. We've all AD's
Yeah.
unbelievable. We
Oh,
saw
he's
what he
great.
did in the debut with the Mavericks. That first half, he put up like 24 and 13. I'm like, he looks like a young Shaq with the Magic, a skinnier Shaq when he was dominating with the Orlando Magic, and then he goes out partway through the third quarter. It, that's what it comes down to. You can't count on him in a hard-nosed playoff 7-game series.
No, you can't. He's too fragile. When he's playing and when he's on, he's probably the best center in the league when he's on.
Yes.
But he's on so rarely and he's off the court so often. It's like you can't rely on him. And why would you trade for him, especially this late in his career? It's like early in his career, he wasn't injured as much. You kind of thought they were just fluke injuries. I'm sure he was recovering from them a lot quicker. Now it's like he's going to get injured more often. They're going to take longer and longer to recover from. It's like that trade makes no sense from the Mavs standpoint unless he was perfectly healthy for a full season, which like 99% chance was never going to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And when it comes to AD and him being out for All Star Weekend, I think it led to some even bigger news. Okay, it's like what we were talking about with the NFL and some players during Pro Bowl not playing, and some person who doesn't deserve to be there ends up going. Drake May. Well, there's not a ton of quarterback. Whatever. The NBA is insane. AD goes out. Okay, everyone. Who's going in? Obviously Sabonis. Okay, Sabonis is unbelievable. He's literally Nikola Jokic, just a little worse. Okay, he's not.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing him to Jokic is his own thing, but he plays somewhat of the same. Good passer for a big man, putting up unbelievable stats, rebounds, assists, points. He is a dog, and guess what they do? Guess what they do for All Star Weekend? Kyrie Irving. And I'm not saying Kyrie's having a bad year. He's not. He's playing pretty well. But that is crazy to me. Talk to me with you being a Kings fan and what's gone on with the whole De'Aaron Fox stuff. Your guy, then Sabonis, doesn't make it to the All-Star. I feel for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. Like statistically wise, Domantas Sabonis is probably a top 10 player overall, statistic wise. He's leading the leagues in rebounds. He's second in 3-point shooting, only behind Jokic. I think he's top 5 in field goal percentage. He's in the top 20 in assists per game. It's like this dude has incredible stats, and he's not in the top 15, 16 in the West. Like that's crazy to me. And it's like I get that people want to watch Kyrie over a boring player like Domantas Sabonis, but it's like at some point it's got to be statistics based. It's got to be based on performance. It's like Sabonis is too good of a player to leave him off the All-Star game year after year. This isn't the only time this has happened.
No, and here's
I
where
don't
I'm
even
going
think
to
Kyrie.
fight for you guys is when you're talking about, oh, people want to see Kyrie. People, okay, maybe that was what the NBA's whole thing was. But that's not what their whole thing is, because they left LaMelo Ball out, who is number
Yeah.
one in fan voting. So if it was about that, then you can make the case, okay, they just want viewership. But it's not that, because they left LaMelo out on the East. So it literally makes zero sense to me, because this ends up hurting a player's legacy long run, okay? Because you hear about all-stars, you hear about championships, you hear about all this stuff. When you look back on Sabonis' career, he has nothing to show for it, even though we're living through it, getting to see the stats and witness what's going on, and he has nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for him. Yeah, like he's done everything that he had to do to reach that all-star level. And it's like Kyrie isn't even the worst thing. It's looking at Sengun's stats for the Rockets. Sabonis clears them in points. He has 4 more rebounds per game, an extra assist, shoots 10% higher from the field, and 20% higher from 3. All that Sengun does better, he gets half a block more and half a steal more. And you're telling me just those 2 defensive stats outweigh all of Sabonis's drastically higher offensive stats?
It had to have been all wins they went off of. It had to have been just wins.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that I can think. But then you think of Kyrie, and Kyrie doesn't have the wins, so none of it makes sense. None of it does.
No. And I feel like the LaMelo thing is almost worse than the Sabonis thing. Like, Sabonis deserves it more. LaMelo, efficiency-wise, is horrible. But it's like LaMelo is one of the biggest draws in the sports, especially for people that don't watch basketball. People just know who LaMelo is. He's such a big personality outside of basketball. Like, the NBA is just kind of screwing themselves over by not having him there at All-Star Weekend. And the way that he plays basketball is just so fun to watch in an All-Star format, where he can just go out there and have fun and mess around. Like, I think it's a huge missed opportunity by the NBA, leaving that man out of the All-Star game, especially when some of the guys on the East are guys you've never really heard of if you're like a casual fan. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Pascal Siakam. Like, nobody's tuning into the All-Star game to watch those guys, but people would tune in to watch LaMelo Ball.
Scroll through TikTok and guess what you see post-game press things. It's LaMelo. He's a jokester, okay? He's been around the camera since he's been 10 years old, okay? He knows how to draw people in, and you can't be like, well, I don't know. He was number 1 in fan voting for the front court of the East, okay? And they sit here and talk about viewership, and you're not going to put him in. It's literally unbelievable. I actually saw they had Adam Silver on Pardon My Take, okay? Commissioner of the NBA, and Big Cat asks him, he asks him a question. Think of how crazy this is. He says, hey, Commissioner, I want one rule, okay? Tell me what you'd think about this rule. He says, I want one rule in the NBA. He says, every player, they get one time per season where the fans are heckling them, okay? They get to choose a fan. It can only be one time per year, but that fan is heckling them. They get to pull them out of the stands and fight them at half court. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I love it. Yeah. Hold these fans accountable for what they're saying. But
I'm just talking, my whole joke thing is viewership, okay? That's what Big Cat was getting to, is you guys need viewership, find some way to get it, and leaving LaMelo Ball off of it is brain dead to me. Brain dead.
I mean, it makes no sense. Like, he's one of the biggest, probably top 10 draws, just as the personality standpoint in the whole league. And it's like, you got a bunch of no-names on that Eastern All-Star team. It's just such a wasted opportunity. It's like, you could have left Pascal Siakam off the All-Star team, even though efficiency-wise, he's probably better than LaMelo this year. LaMelo would do so much for ratings that it's like, it's just such a dumb move, especially when the NBA and Adam Silver are complaining about TV ratings, where it's like something as simple as that is like a major fix for TV ratings, and you just let it slip by. It's like, it's crazy.
Do you think the NBA, talking about like viewership and stuff, I was seeing that going into this next season, actually, they're expanding the NBA. They're going to be playing some games this next season, 25-26, in Melbourne, Australia, okay? So they're obviously trying to go global, okay? But like there's big European basketball. People love it, and it's actually played a little different than what the NBA has played. Do you think doing that is going to help ratings, help get more people, or do you think they should focus domestically more in growing the NBA here? Because it just doesn't seem like we're pushing a lot of talent like we used to. We're seeing so many foreigners, and it's kind of taken away from this. I love having foreign basketball players, but I think we're missing out on a lot of domestic NBA as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it hurts expanding the game internationally. Obviously, Australia is a huge market, and they're huge basketball fans. So I don't think it hurts. But yeah, I think what you're saying is we need to fix the problem in America first before we really think that expanding to other countries is really going to make that big of a difference. We need superstars in America because America is the biggest market for the NBA. So we need to figure that out. We need to figure out how to speed up challenges and not have so many timeouts, not have so many fouls, not have so many teams that nobody's heard of. There's so many little things that we could fix about the game specifically before we worry about expanding to other markets. I feel like there's a lot of untapped markets within America that we need to worry about first that would be better for the NBA in the long run.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's where it just seems like they're trying to push the international too hard. I'm not against it. I'm just saying leaving LaMelo Ball out and putting in maybe some other international players into the Eastern Conference, whatever. I think they need to find a better way for these all stars. Okay, they need to go off stats and not just people voting of who they think it is. Stats and fan voting. That should be what it is. Okay, it's not all about the wins. Now, I'm not saying you take the lowest person in the Western Conference seeding wise and put in them, but they need to start pushing a lot more the fan voting. We're the ones watching the All Star weekend. Okay, and you're taking out one of the biggest people. And I'm telling you, if you brought LaMelo Ball there and then you do a little jello type of thing going on, okay, there could have been a huge thing. And you could say whatever you want about the Ball family, they pull views. Okay, they pull views. You can love them, you can hate them, but now you're not going to get LeVar Ball there during All Star weekend. You're not getting Jello Ball there. And then LaMelo's not going to be there. I just wonder what's kind of going through their head when they're making these decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand what the point of fan voting is if the number one guy, who's also ninth in the league in points per game, it's not like it was Bronny that had the number one fan voting. It's like you have a legit number one option on probably the worst team in the NBA, but it's like statistically, he's having a good year number wise. Efficiency wise, horrible, but like he's ninth in the league in points. He's getting a ton of assists, ton of rebounds, and he's exciting. Fans want to watch him. Like, what's the point of fan voting if a solid All Star level player is still not going to make it, even with the most fan votes?
I agree. It makes no sense, and I was seeing that fan voting is supposed to count as 50% of it or something. No, there's no way it counts as 50% if the number one person didn't even make it in. Um, and so that brings me to, I think, to wrap it up here, we kind of finish with how these two teams are going to deal with this in the long run. And it's the Lakers, the Hornets. Trade falls through. Mark Williams, I thought was an unbelievable asset, would have been for the Lakers, okay, until I saw the debut. They're fine. But prior to that, I thought he was going to be the perfect fit. I honestly didn't even know really who the guy was that much. But then looking at him, seemed like a good fit. Well, he obviously failed his physical, okay? Dalton Connect, this young rookie, going to Charlotte. Laker fan base loved the guy. And then as a rookie, all of a sudden you're told, nope, you're actually heading back to the Lakers. Locker room with a lot of stars sitting inside of there, and you got to walk back in. How do you think that's going to turn out for LA?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a bad thing that the trade fell through. I think Mark Williams was their best option at center. Um, I'm glad they got Alex Len, but I don't think he compares at all to Mark Williams. But I think they'll be fine. Dalton Connect, he's playing tonight already. I think he'll bounce back. It would be tough thinking you're going to Charlotte, coming back to LA. You have to live with Pelinka and JJ Redick. No, like knowing that those two guys probably consider you one of the first pieces that they would trade moving forward. So mentally, I could see that being a little weird with Dalton Connect. But as a rookie, you're in such a great position. You just got to put your head down, go to work, and do what you can to prove that you are worth not trading. So I think it'll work out. And playing with Luka and LeBron, he's going to have a lot of open shots, and I think he's going to have a good year. And I think they'll go trade some of their future picks and stuff next year for a real center. So I think he's fine, and I think the Lakers will be okay. But I do think the Mark Williams trade happening probably would have been a better thing for them overall.
I agree with that, and I think Dalton Connect right now, like you said, putting his head down and focusing, okay, I was going to go on an absolutely horrible team into the East. I'm actually staying in the West now with a team who's playing extremely well. Let's come in and show them, hey, this is why actually I should still be here, okay? You got playmakers around you. You're going to be wide open, like you said, with LeBron if he gets on the floor with LeBron and Luka at one point, and the ball dominance or the defense is going to be swarming to those two, Dalton, put your head down, start making those shots, and the Lakers are going to be like, I'm glad that trade fell through, okay? So I hope it doesn't hurt him too deep, because this could actually be a huge momentum builder for the young kid.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think he's going to have a good career. It was surprising to learn that Mark Williams is younger than Dalton Connect, even though Dalton Connect's a rookie and Mark Williams has been in the league for a few years. Yeah, I think Dalton Connect will kind of come into his own here, similar to Reeves. Like, Austin Reeves is having a crazy good season this year. And the way Dalton Connect plays the game and just his maturity, I think it'll transfer very similar to what Reeves is doing. And I think the Lakers have a really good piece there. And maybe they can trade him for someone even better than Mark Williams in the future. So I think it'll work out for him.
Do you think at any point this year, we're gonna see JJ Redick step on the court? Because let me tell you, obviously I'm joking, but that guy still being like younger and he still looks in good shape, dude. As you're coaching that team, you gotta be like, I want to be out there with these boys. I mean, it looks fun. That game against the Jazz was unbelievable in the camaraderie they had going.
100%, yeah. Like, especially coming from JJ Redick, who has played with Luka and he's played against LeBron for 12, 15 years. So it's like he knows everything about these two games, or these two players' games, and he's such a fan of basketball that he couldn't not be a fan of like two of the best players in the league. So having to sit there every night and just watch them play together and have so much fun and get these young guys involved, I'm sure it's killing him to just be the coach. But yeah, I think the whole JJ Redick move, I got to give the Lakers credit. I think it's working great.
Yep. He's a player's coach.
Who's their coach? What was that?
He's a player's coach, right?
Yeah,
I mean the players absolutely love him. Okay, and that's kind of all you need is the players love the guy. And I think that's the biggest thing with when you're a young coach like he is, just coming in. You have to buy that locker room. You have to get the locker room going, and I think that's what he does.
Yeah, I think he kind of rides that line really well too, where he's in control, but he also takes the input from LeBron or from Luka. He knows how good these players are. He knows he's only a few years older than LeBron. So I think he does a really good job of kind of balancing being a coach, but also being kind of a player of the game and letting LeBron fill in where he needs to. So I think it just kind of works for the team as a whole.
No, I agree. A lot better than Darvin Ham. Okay,
yeah.
That's who. Yep, a lot better than there. Well, to finish this up, make sure you go follow us on TikTok. We post there daily. We try and get 4 or 5, sometimes more videos. We post as much content as we can. We at least post every single day. Make sure to stay here on YouTube. We post every single Wednesday. Periodically, there will be some thrown in throughout the week as well. But at least every single Wednesday, we'll be doing shorts. Just a lot of fun content. I'm having a blast. How about you?
Oh, yeah, it's great. I'm glad to be back. Excited for the All-Star game and then the NBA playoff push.
Yes, sir. We'll be back next Wednesday.